Hey, welcome to Life Online. It seems as if our world is just changing constantly, but we're still in the middle of, say, some chaotic situations. I happened to be at Home Depot a couple of days ago when the emergency close down came because of threats on social media, and it impacted me emotionally. I don't know if I've been in that kind of a situation. I have, because of approaching weather storms or something would be dangerous, but never a threat of some type of violence. So anyway, touched my life. I headed to the scriptures, Psalm 62. And by the way, these are the words of David. How long will you assault me? Would all of you throw me down, this leaning wall, this tottering fence? Most believe that this is written by David when he is under assault from his son Absalom. And what a great word picture. He sees himself ready to be thrown down, but he sees himself as this leaning wall, this tottering fence. Here's a great picture, just fragile, not stable. What should be protection, what should be strong, and yet now very vulnerable. And what ends up happening is David makes some profound statements here. And what he says is this in verses 5 through 8 of Psalm 62. Yes, my soul, find rest in God. Notice how he uses self-talk. He talks to himself. He just says, you come and come to silence. That's the idea of find rest in God. It's come to a place where you are still, you have nothing to say, but find the stillness and the quietness and the silence as you turn toward God. And then he uses these ongoing words. My hope comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for he is our refuge. A lot of powerful words that David uses. He's vulnerable. He feels like the tottering fence, and yet he comes to be still and silent before God, and he realizes that his hope comes from God, and it's not the circumstances. It's not in the middle of the threat that's coming from his own biological son. He knows that God is his strength, and so notice the words that he uses, powerful images. He comes to God and says, God, you're my rock. And God, you're the one that'll get me out of this situation. You're my salvation. And you're my fortress, God. You are the strong one for me. You are my refuge. All of these are solid, steady. When everything else is unstable, God, you are not. And so I have confidence in you. And he says, trust in him at all times. And I also like what he says, where he says, pour out your hearts to him. He's calling for all people, those who trust in God. It's time for us to pour out our hearts to God, and God will help us. But in the middle of all of this, he says, I will not be shaken. I love the faith. I love the confidence that comes from him. The word here for greatly shaken, that while everything else teeters, the tottering fence, while everything else is unstable and everything else is troubled, God is not. He does not totter greatly so as to fall and end up on the ground, but instead everything else, while it trembles and shakes, God is there and he is steady. He is your rock. He is your salvation. He's your fortress. He's your refuge. I don't know what you're going through personally. We know what it is to kind of be going through this very difficult season of conflict and trouble in our nation, whether it's from virus, whether it's from the divisions and rioting that is taking place. But there is a God who is never shaken. And when we put our hope and our trust in him, the idea is that he has completely surrounded us and his steadiness becomes our stability. So run to God, rest in him, trust in him, pour out your heart to him. There's a God who will always be our refuge. He's just looking for us to run to him. With these thoughts in mind, I trust that you have a day of leaning heavily into God. He is steady and will never fail you. So have an awesome day.